November 2nd, 2012. From the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in Warwick, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For November 2nd, 2012, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Hurricane Sandy drops the people's elbow on the New Jersey shore. The New England Compounding Center proves fungal meningitis is nowhere near as enjoyable as its name suggests. Fox News lists Ann Coulter as author and columnist, which might lead an uninformed viewer to think she is rational and holds valid opinions. Hurricane Sandy whips Lower Manhattan into a Cobra Clutch suplex. Ellen DeGeneres apparently doesn't like penis. Oh, wait. Pens. And penis. Universally recognized authority on awesomeness, Bristol Palin, reports Sarah Palin is awesome. Hurricane Sandy delivers a Boston crab to Cape Cod. For Christians weirded out by candy and costumes, there's JesusWeen.com. I mean, really? Now Christians are resorting to stealing holidays from themselves that they already appropriated from pagans? Hurricane Sandy delivers a textbook crucifix powerbomb to Ohio. Disney announces a plan to buy Lucasfilm for a mere $4 billion. Hurricane Sandy, after murderous rampage and billions in property damage, sinks into tropical depression. Political power couple Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar endorse political power tool Todd Akin. Coming up after the break, Mommy, what's that? Jaws 5, this time it's for tax purposes, and how to tell if your society is dead.
It can be hard to think rationally when a loved one passes away. This can be especially true in the event of untimely death or when religious or cultural traditions demand quick interment of remains. Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes are here to ensure your needs are served in the most efficient and profitable way possible. At Blue and Flatley Funeral Homes, your money is very important to us, and we want to make sure we do everything you can afford to put your mind at ease. Blue and Flatley, profiting from the misery of others since 1883.
Nadia Suleiman. Again. Republican presidential hopeful Mitt Romney has been cultivating a reputation for a thoroughgoing detachment from the facts and his own opinions for years now. His latest departure from the world of facts and reality at large, while speaking to voters in Ohio, involved a charge that the Obama administration's auto industry bailout is such a colossal failure that Jeep is planning to move its production to China. Now, Jeep, for the uninitiated, is a division of Chrysler, and Chrysler hasn't been in majority American hands, apart from when the government owned it, for more than 2 of the last dozen years. Currently, Italy's Fiat is the majority shareholder. Jeep, Chrysler, and Fiat have all issued statements that refute Romney's claims and all but call him a liar. Funny that Romney made the remark while appealing to voters in the Rust Belt, especially given his 2008 position on the U.S. auto industry. He wrote an editorial under the compassionate title, quote, "Let Detroit Go Bankrupt," end quote. Now there's a man with concern for the economic well-being of his home state. If Romney's detachment from reality isn't enough to get you voting Republican, perhaps you'd like to turn your attention to Republican Representative from Georgia, Paul Brown. Congressman Brown, who is an actual medical doctor, an MD, for crying out loud, said a while back that the scientifically validated theories of evolution, Big Bang cosmology, and embryology are, quote, lies straight from the pit of hell, end quote. This level of dangerous, willful stupidity doesn't belong on the Homecoming Committee, let alone the House Science Committee. Brown and his buddy, Mr. Todd Legitimate Rape Aiken, are both on the House Science Committee. In the same setting as the Pit of Hell remarks, Brown had the nerve to call himself a scientist and then in the very same sentence state the available evidence supports the idea, quote, that this really is a young Earth, end quote, no more than 9,000 years old. What? You haven't had enough of douchey and douchier? Submitted for your examination one Richard Mourdock, Republican candidate for the Indiana State Senate. Mourdock, let's call him Mr. Sensitive, recently remarked that if a rape happens, it is part of God's will, something God intended to happen, and if the rape results in pregnancy, it is a gift from God. Of course, Mourdock has yet to provide any objectively verifiable evidence that this God of his even exists, and yet he feels perfectly comfortable telling us about his God's plans and intentions. And then there's Joe Walsh, not the Eagles guitarist, the Republican representative from Illinois. In recent remarks, Walsh has informed us that with modern science and medicine, there's no reason for a pregnant woman to die as a consequence of her pregnancy. This is the cornerstone of his no-exceptions anti-abortion policy. And, just in case you thought Joe Walsh might be a human, his position on same-sex marriage is just as enlightened, informed, and empathetic. Topping off the list of fucktards, wackaloons, and Bible-thumping prigs trying to convince you that blind obedience to fallible, inconsistent human interpretation of a supposedly sacred and immutable text is far better than a government for, by, and of the people telling you what to do, is Republican candidate for the Arkansas legislature, and I'm not making this name up, Charlie, honest, this is for real, Charlie Fuqua. This shit stain maintains a strict no-exceptions anti-abortion position, while at the same time, ready for this? Endorsing the death penalty for rebellious children. That sounds mighty pro-life. I tell you, this year's crop of Republican candidates makes the last round look like the fucking Nobel Committee. Sarah Palin looks like the love child of Bob Ross and Danica McKellar compared to this field of dweebs. These are dangerous people with dangerous ideas trying to drag us back to the days of witch trials and dysentery. These aren't harmless birthday clowns. These are Tim Curry clowns with face-eating fangs. Want proof? Have you ever seen Ann Romney smile? Jesus! She could sever both of an elephant's carotid arteries in one bite with those teeth. Rowan Atkinson, whom you may know as Mr. Bean, Edmund Blackadder, Johnny English, or for you more BBC-centric viewers, Inspector Raymond Fowler, has taken a decidedly serious turn in addressing what he calls the, quote, creeping culture of censoriousness, end quote. Atkinson's position is that British culture has gone so far out into the politically correct weeds that it has become practically impossible to have a calm, rational discussion about delicate topics. His point is that no one has a right to be safe from offense. Does Atkinson have a point? Or is he just a comedian blowing hot air? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
As a God-fearing Christian, I have a God-given right not to be offended. Now, a Muslim or a Jew or a Scientologist or a godless atheist, well, they're wrong, so they need to be offended in order to shame them into getting right with God, who they should fear, because He loves them. That's why He made us sinners, so they could feel inadequate and unworthy. That's what God's love is all about. Praise Jesus! Rowan Atkinson is absolutely right. Like so many other comics, Atkinson is a lot more on the ball than a casual observer might guess. Religious people appear to be particularly prone to taking offense when their own beliefs are brought to question, but are perfectly happy to berate, defame, and talk down to people who don't share their beliefs. It can be insulting, but what a person chooses to do with that says a lot about what kind of person they are.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. Don't go away, coming up after the break, working the Imperial March into Fantasia, a hell of a skunk, and meh, the revenge.
Soot. You've been hearing a lot of not-so-nice things about soot. Mostly from tree-hugging, dirt-worshipping pansy liberals and people who think breathing is important. They will talk the ears off your head, droning on and on about wind and solar and renewable energy. What they don't tell you is that soot built America. Our modern post-industrial society owes everything to soot. If it wasn't for coal-fired power and diesel-powered transportation, America would grind to a halt. That's a fact. And as long as we have anything to say about it, and as long as there's profit to be made in government subsidies on soot, we're going to do everything we can to keep it that way. We're America's soot industry. Profitable, ugly, traditional, American.
Jar Jar Binks. And now, here's Ryan Hanley with another Jeff Goldblum fact.
You know Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum was in a Columbo TV movie, A Case of Immunity. Using ancient Goldblum powers, he was able to turn Peter Falk's glass eye into a real working eye. Unfortunately, Falk, in his joyous celebration, bludgeoned his eye on an incoming truck. So he had to get a new glass one. He asked Jeff if he could replace it again, but Jeff was like, "What am I, made of eyeballs?" Because he's not. Back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. Fascinating. And now, here's Moose Weintraub with the Sports Half Minute.
Seconds of sports. Who's Weintraub Sports Half Minute?
This is your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. Hurricane Sandy had the decency to wait until that one team won the World Series over that other team.
Who's Weintraub Sports Half Minute?
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. In New Silwickly Township, Pennsylvania, a 9-year-old girl was non-fatally shot at a Halloween party by an as-yet unnamed relative. The girl was wearing a black outfit with a black hat and a white tassel on it, and the relative mistook her for a skunk. He shot the supposed skunk in the shoulder with a shotgun. Given the effective range of a shotgun, it would seem that one would have to be pretty wasted to mistake a 9-year-old girl for a skunk. How much had the relative had to drink? According to the township police, none at all. I'm not sure what that says about Silwickly Township, but I imagine it's not terribly flattering. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? Microsoft has released its new desktop operating system, Microsoft Windows 8. Not since the release of Microsoft Windows Vista in January 2007 have longtime Windows users recoiled in perplexed horror at the release of a new Microsoft product. By most accounts, MS Windows 8 is a disjointed train wreck wherein all the passengers carry virulent and highly communicable diseases. Could Windows 8 be the break Linux desktop enthusiasts have been waiting for? Maybe. But if history teaches us anything, some pair of influential Linux insiders will get in a tiff over some comment in the source code of a driver for some obscure hardware that no one has, and the moment will be lost. 4 years will have passed, and Microsoft will have released a slightly updated version of Windows 7 to replace Windows 8. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, you can submit your story tips online at newsundies.com. NewsUndies is a bi-weekly show, and we'll be back on November 16th with fresh undies. Until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be recasting the Star Wars universe with classic Disney cartoon characters.